eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
What the hell is going on? Welcome to Polarity, guys. My name is Josh. Thank you all for being here. Seeing lots of you guys in the chat already. We love to see it. We have episode 3 in the S4 files that we're looking at today, and this one is honestly full of bombs. I'm really excited for this one. It's probably going to be a little bit of a longer stream today, maybe around the 2-hour mark, or maybe even a little bit more. So in episode 1, we looked at the construction of S4, which was kind of like a prologue to this series. Episode 2, we heard from whistleblower Contra Orion, who came to Wendell Stevens to speak to him about all the things that he'd seen at S4. And I will just say, I apologize for the shit audio yesterday. It did 100% detract from the show, but we're going to be making up for it today. Like I said, there's lots of good stuff in this. And I spent a bit of time today trying to comb through the footage to fix it up. So the audio is better today. Hopefully we're not going to have any problems. So we are going to have a little deep dive in this show today of the famous STS-48 footage. And if you don't know what that is, it's where this satellite footage from, I believe, NASA, of a giant beam weapon that fires out of the atmosphere at what looks like an intelligently controlled object in outer space. Wild, right? It's actually what's on the thumbnail. I saw a lot of you guys in the chat talking about lightsabers. Can you let me know in the chat if you thought the thumbnail is a lightsaber? Because it's not. But I could understand why you may have thought that, because Star Wars is in the title. So that's probably my fault. And it makes me regret it, because it's not a lightsaber. It's something else. We're going to find out what it is, and it's very interesting. But I might fix up the thumbnail so it looks less like a lightsaber. We're going to be hearing a bit more from Contra Orion today. We're going to see his sketches about the crafts and the beings that he saw at S4. But mostly today's episode is hearing from Wendell Stevens, a retired United States Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. And excuse me, he's going to be talking about the fact that these underground facilities were built, these deep underground military bases are being built, maybe not all of them, but some of them are being built to house the aliens, and that creating these underground facilities for them was part of the deal that we made in exchange for their technology. I know, wild stuff. It's not me saying it, it's Wendell Stevens. He talks about secret space programs, fleets of UFOs that he believes are ours. And we even touch on Gary McKinnon as well, famous British hacker in the early 2000s who allegedly saw documentation and photographs of this off-world fleet. And this all kicked off in 1983, apparently with the Star Wars project. So we're going to be getting into all of that today. Like I said, big show. Jeff with a $5, keep up the good work. Love this show. Thank you, Jeff. And you've just made it clear that I need to fix up this. There we go. That's a little bit better. Thank you, mate. I appreciate the $5 super chat. But that's it for today, guys. Thank you all for being here. I hope you've enjoyed this all so far. This is all going into a Secrets of S4 playlist. So if you're not fully caught up, you can always go back in the playlist and check it all out. But let's jump over here and we can get straight into it. We're jumping straight into Wendell Stevens with Contra Orion, and then the show is going to be sectioned off today. In fact, I'll probably put in chapter markers after the end because it is nicely kind of sectioned out.
All the bays are over here. It's a very vast company.
Big place, huh?
Big place. The elevators are right here. There's 4 elevators. 3 and 4 are extremely security. There are no sentries down at 3 or 4. And the levels of 3 and 4, I don't know what goes on down there. I heard something about an EBE or EBE down there. I'm not too familiar with what it is, but as you get off the elevators, get off, and this is level 2.
Yeah, the audio is much better. Obviously, you can hear the slight hiss and hum, but that's kind of the trade-off. But I do think it is much better. $20 super chat from Bleak13. He didn't leave a message, but Bleak, thank you, mate. I appreciate it. I see your name in here a lot. I appreciate all the support. I just also think it's worth saying, I feel like after yesterday's episode, we were all feeling a little sus on Connor O'Ryan, and fair. I think that's fair. But as I said, I had to kind of comb through this footage today to fix up the audio, and I'm feeling a little less sus on him now. I'll just say that, but I'm interested to see what you guys think.
Walk in, the bays are over here. They're all separated by like an automatic doors that open and close each bay. Walk down, there's 5 on each side. There's a hallway right there, and each of these bays have elevators. It'll bring them all the way to the top. It'll bring the whole floor all the way up with a hydraulic system. Now, as you walk down, there's a lot of machinery right here, which I have no recollection of what it does. I believe it's...
I did. Finally.
I've never been in that area. My job was to be a sentry for these 3 gates and up above in the level complex, and sometimes I would be walking down here escorting people. This is all machinery right here. This, I believe, is a computer. I believe it's like something that's preserving whatever, these gray humanoid people in here. This right here is shelving in a desk area. It's occupied. It's 2B. There's a back hallway right here. I've never been back there. There's 4 snipers on duty at all times. At all times. I don't know. They have their own sleeping quarters.
There's 4 snipers on duty in S4 at all times, apparently, according to Connor O'Ryan, who, yes, I did get his name correct today. And we've just had 5 memberships gifted by Dan Garden. Guys, let's get some love and hearts in the chat for Dan Garden and all of our new members. We've just got 5 new certified weirdos. So if you are one of those people who just received a membership from Dan, make sure you thank him. What an absolute legend. Huge support. And $10 from Rob Laird. £10, actually. Keep up the dry, sarcastic tone, boyo. Loving your work. I'll do my best, Rob. I'll do my best. Thanks, mate. I appreciate that a lot.
A further sketch of facilities, living facilities in level 2. He was sketching the map of the layout of level 2, and he showed me their patrol area. They were not allowed to look around. He showed me where they slept and where they ate. And he said they were not allowed to talk except in front of the television or at the dining table. They were not allowed to talk to each other in the dormitory. There were audio pickups all over the place so they could be detected if they tried talking. He said we learned not to do it. Their food was catered in. They slept in the facility.
I mean, we saw this yesterday. Like, these guys are robots. They are human robots, the way they are treated and meticulously controlled.
For 28 days, 4 hours on and 8 hours off around the clock. The place was popularly regarded as a museum internally. And he says, why all of the security and the expense of running it if it's only a museum?
A museum. So inside there, they're saying, like, this is a museum, I guess, like housing ancient relics, like these UFOs that they've found. They're calling it a museum. Weird. $5 from Rusty for the Suki dog chew. Suki says thank you. She's just kicking back right now, but thank you, Rusty. I appreciate that, mate. And so does Suki.
You say the security levels 1 and 2 have sentries, guards, but there's no guards below level 2. How
Sentries aren't allowed down in guard. We guarded the elevators for 3 and 4. You have to have 3 keys, a thumbprint, and a retina print to get in.
3 keys?
3 keys.
3 keys, a thumbprint, and a retina.
And a retina print, which is like a
Look at a
camcorder. Like, look in, and they stick their right eye up to it. Left them at the same time.
It's the same.
I feel like we've heard about this before, but I can't think of where. Is it Bob Lazar or who has spoken about this retina key, fingerprint and eye retina key? Or Lou Elizondo? Someone has spoken about this before, but I can't remember who it is.
After they turn the keys, they stick the keys in, boom, boom, which is on a row, 2 inches below. And then they look, the doors are open, they get in, I don't know where they go. I assume that there's 2 more levels below too. I could not be for sure, but I know there's 3 and 4. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. Bob Lazar was a hand scanner, but retina, someone has spoke about this.
There's 3 and 4 elevator.
They don't use magnetic cards?
No.
Keys are metal keys, like a house key.
Yes, just a regular house key. Go on.
Interesting.
I heard in level 3 that they had a what they call a EBE or an EBE, which I don't. Mr. Stevens described it a little bit better, but I don't know what it looks like. I never viewed it.
So EBE is extraterrestrial biological entity? Wait, I feel like that first E is wrong. Extraterrestrial is 2 words. Help me out here, guys. What's the first E? Or is that right? The only reason I'm bringing that up is because EBE is also the terminology that's used in the MJ12 SOM 01 document, which is basically like the action plan on how to handle crash retrievals, the public seeing something that they weren't meant to see. So just interesting that we've got this guy's using the same terminology, and considering the time frame, right? Like we all sort of know EBE now, but remember this is like mid-90s.
Said it was dead or alive. They never said it. Nobody never said it. I just
it should be ETBE.
Through gossip talk, sometimes you hear, as these guys were coming out of the elevator and stuff like that, you're sitting there at your post, and they just, go on talking, you can hear what they're saying about somebody EBE, which is a biological abuse.
Dan Garden, welcome back, my brother. Thank you for another month as being a weirdo. Some love and hearts, please.
Now, when you're in level 2, every once in a while, as I was saying before, that there's some screaming.
This part's creepy. This part is creepy. Check this out.
A part of a cross of a chimpanzee and I know it's not a chimpanzee. It sounds. I don't know how to describe it. It's extremely blood-clotted, I guess you could say.
That plane, though, this is the stuff I tried to remove in the last video, and that's why the audio is so cooked. But he's saying that these screams that you can hear in level 2 are blood-curdling. And they don't know what they are. But you always hear them.
Yeah, it's... Okay, it's a cross between a chimpanzee and maybe and it's not kind of ridiculous, but an elephant. I mean, like how an elephant roars, but it's like he's got a vocal cord that's kicking, that's, it's...
That sound, like thinking about that, a chimpanzee screaming and like that vocal cord, like part of the elephant noise. I think like that's a weird description, but I think we all kind of know what he's trying to say. That sound that an elephant makes, it's kind of like a low tone and a high tone at the same time. That sound, didn't Dr. Jonathan Reed, in the Jonathan Reed video, he said the alien that he apparently killed, I know some people think he's a fraud, who knows, the alien that he apparently killed screamed. It had some kind of intense scream. And just the way that that's being described is very eerie, like those kind of double tones. And just quickly on that, have you guys seen that video that's been going around recently? I wanted to show it on the channel at some point, where someone's extinguishing a fire with sound. That's crazy. That's crazy. If that's real, that's crazy.
I never want to hear it again. I mean...
And you hear that on level 2, and
you hear that on level 2 if you're down there long enough during the day, during working hours, during when the people are down there. But there's always 10 to 12 people down there on level 3 and 4. It seems like they would have a better system of knocking out this game. I don't know if it's just the extremely high octaves of what they are working on, or
my man Jason, thank you, bro.
What they're doing.
Super bass. Yeah,
he told me his name was
sound. That's it. It's all about sound, frequency, vibration. Didn't Tesla say that?
Contra Orion, and I didn't question it. I at the time saw 7 ships stored at level 2 of S4. 3 of them were identical, and the rest were all different from all the others. As I remembered Bob Lazar saying that he saw 9 bays in a row and different craft in each bay. They were not allowed to look directly at the cadavers pickled in vertical cylinders. There was about 5 or 6 of them on one side, and they weren't allowed to look directly at this craft in the 7 of the bays available there. He said it looked like all the craft were stored on separate mobile bays that could be rolled out and down to a big elevator, like a carrier elevator, that took them to level 1 where they could be taken outside. And he knew that they always had to wait when they got to level 1 until all the Russian satellites were below the horizon before they would take them outside.
As far as the disc craft and other craft over in S4, are they all captured alien vehicles, or are they also Nazi engineered vehicles that
those are
took over? Oh,
yeah, those are in another part of S4.
Oh, the Nazi vehicles, they're in the other part of S4, guys. So if you were wondering where the Nazis' UFOs are, they're just in the other bay at S4. So yeah, don't
when
worry
we were
about
out in the desert at the high point interviewing Contra, we had him sketch the craft that he saw in the 7 bays of the bay facility there. And he said that there were craft in 7 of the bays. The 3 of the craft were identical. All the rest were different.
What was your main focus in doing the interview?
We'll let him say what he could say as much as we could get from him. I didn't want to be leading him or introducing anything, changing the subjects. I wanted it to be his testimony. This is his sketch on the notebook that we were using at the recording site of the ship in bay number 1. He's doing all the sketching in ball pen in blue ink.
This one is kind of...
little correlation here. Three-pronged, three-legged stand, whatever. I don't know what you want to call that. I mean, I guess that's what you would expect these craft to have, but I'm pretty sure that's one of the key features of the Lonnie Zamora case.
This one's got the legs and all. I mean, I don't know too much about this one. I've only seen this one twice. It has like a hydraulic system in here that keeps it up off the ground. The legs kind of like they got joints in them that move. There's 4 legs on this one. I mean, I believe this is an older recovery. There's no...
Is this a smooth curve up here on the top?
This is a smooth curve. And there's some kind of a white crystalline substance right here.
Crystalline substance.
Crystalline. Looks to me like a diamond, but I mean, it's about 8 inches wide. I don't know what it is or what it's for. I've never seen it activated. This is of a low priority vehicle. This one is mostly covered all the time, and this is in Bay 1.
Interesting details, right? You know, this one's usually covered. You know, that's a very just like obscure, irrelevant detail. You know, like I feel like if this guy is lying, you're a very professional liar to be just adding in little details like that, I think.
I think 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6.
Yes. And this is, I mean, this, it's like they don't pay no attention
Patrick says it's a Weber.
to this one at all. This is mostly covered all the time. I've seen it
They're having barbecues in S4.
covered once.
What kind of testing done on the craft that is besides radiation? That kind of stuff.
Well, I know there was, I mean, there's I guess what you call a metallurgist at the facility that's there all the time. I mean, he was always constantly trying to get some kind of, I mean, they were trying to scrape him, but a couple of them would produce some kind of residue from the scrape. Some of them wouldn't. I mean, as I say, when somebody was there on the ship, we couldn't get a view at all. When they were working on their vehicles, we couldn't. If we turned around and looked, we were reprimanded immediately. So it's best not to observe. You just walk back and forth. I mean, you can kind of look out a corner of your eye, but that's about the best you can see. I mean, they had machines they'd wheel in there, and I just couldn't make it out because everything was so tight. They were working on it, it was tight. I mean, they didn't trust us. They trusted us to know. I mean, we knew what was there, but it was like, to know what's going on, it's a whole different story. It's a need to know, and that's basically all it is to it.
Did you ever overhear any of the scientists discussing any properties of the metals or magnetic fields?
I heard one time about they were trying to figure out how many times that this metal was laid or something. Laid upon each, some kind of a process that they didn't know what kind. I mean, that's about it. They were trying to figure out, and they were talking about how many times it was laid, like 1,000 times it makes it laid. It's just kind of a metal or something. But that's about it. I didn't.
Is it about conductivity and magnetism?
No.
Never overheard any of that.
Yeah. I mean, I've read books about, geomagnetic propulsion and stuff like that.
Were you guys ever briefed on radiation hazard areas or magnetic electronics hazard areas?
Here we go.
Yeah, just a little bit though. We were told that the machines themselves were high in radiation not to touch. I don't think that was true. I think they just didn't want us near them.
Am I wrong in saying that I believe it's Jim Penniston who touched the craft at Rendlesham Forest had long-term radiation injuries, or is it someone else involved in that case? I mean, obviously Jake Barber talked about it, that he had some kind of radiation problem with something he worked on. And this is obviously like a recurring theme, the whole radiation thing, but is that also, because the Rendlesham Forest case, he allegedly just straight up touched it. Anyone?
I mean, the people that were working around him always had a suit on.
Yeah, people are saying yes. Because wasn't it something like... no, maybe I think I could be like conflating two different stories here. I'm thinking about like people who had long-term radiation sickness, and like the fact that they were sick with radiation is the sole reason why the case actually went public, was because of the injuries sustained in it. I don't know if anyone knows, sort of, you can straighten out my stories here.
You know, they were always dressed up appropriately. On the new one, they were.
Does the first one there look like any other ships that you've seen or photos in your catalog?
John Burroughs, right. Yeah, okay. So he was also involved in the Rendlesham case, is that right? Or am I actually conflating two different cases here?
In Bay 2, 3, and 4, there were 3 identical ships just like that. That's his sketch of the Bay 2, 3, and 4.
What's the rectangle you just sketched on the bottom? Is that what they sit on? Or?
This is
Roger.
like what they sit on now.
We got
I
it.
have personally witnessed when they somehow activate this vehicle and a bottom pops out, and then it kind of pops out a little bit and comes to about right, let's say maybe a foot below the vehicle, and it sits on a cushion of air about 2 inches. When you're near the vehicle, the static electricity is extremely intense. When you put your face up to it and breathe up against it or anything, there's no fogging of any sort at all. And
John Burroughs and Jim Penniston with the military police that got close to the craft. Right. So that's interesting though, because I know it is Jim Penniston is the one that touched it, and he got the binary download. So it's strange that there's no radiation injury to him, or at least that we're aware of, right? Yeah, Bleak's asking about Professor Simon's video on Rendlesham. I don't know if it's the latest one, but he did talk about the fact, and others have talked about it since, that the Rendlesham craft was potentially being piloted by a psionic asset of the US military, which is crazy if it's true, because it's in the 80s. And in what we're going to be looking at actually in today's video, maybe that's doesn't seem as far-fetched as we think.
I also found kind of peculiar is there's no dust ever on these, and I don't never seem to see anybody wiping them off. There's no residue of any kind on any of these vehicles, on these 3.
What's this? Is this retractable?
This part right here comes down as retractable.
Bottom
It sits on the ground, and when they activate it, it seems this part pushes it like a hydraulic mechanism, brings it up off the ground to about a foot.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't hear nothing, absolutely no sound, and then it just picks up, and it sits on about 2 inches of air.
This was another attempt to get a better drawing of the craft in Bay 2, 3, and 4 from another angle.
Can you describe the shapes of the openings or the way the doors open on the craft?
Most of the time they had them turned around so we couldn't view it, but one time I seen let me find the one. On the ones, they got 3 identical ones in Bay 2, 3, and 4. These right here. Something like this will just open up. Not from a hinge either. It's all pop up. A whole section will just pop up. There's no stairs or nothing. I don't They had a stair system that would go to it. This is just a view that I've seen. The whole thing.
Mr. T says, why hasn't Gary Nolan or anyone else who's touched this mystery material received any radiation or other? Well, I mean, we obviously only know what we're told, right? But from what it looks like, I mean, I've seen Gary Nolan show off his little collection of samples. They're like small chunks of like rock, or, you know, they essentially just look like little bits of metal. It's not like he's touching fully intact craft. And I would assume, not that I would know, but you would think that these things are probably only giving off this radiation when they are operational. And interestingly, I'm pretty sure it was Gary Nolan who helped assess and I guess set up a procedure for Jake Barber to like receive the correct treatment for his radiation injuries. So he's probably like well aware of the safety risks involved with it all and is able to like steer clear from it, I guess.
Yeah, all the way out and they lay down on the floor?
No, it would pop up and just sit there with some kind of a hydraulic, not anything like we've seen, not hydraulics, but from a view like this, it would look like this. You know what I mean? It would pop up and that would be. But then it would, I mean, when it came back down, you could barely see a crack. Barely. It almost looked, if you were looking from 15 feet away, you couldn't see it.
So the door basically just lifted up and
Lifted up, and that's all I'd ever seen of anything being open. Most of the time they'd have them turned around while they were working, while you were walking back and forth. I mean, we weren't privy to no kind of.
How close is up close and personal, Kat? You touch it? You can't leave us hanging with that. You got to tell us more.
Kind of information whatsoever.
you can never see a glance of any kind of
Any kind of control or monitor, nothing of that sort at all. When there was people in the sauces, we had duty detachment in the hangar area and G level, you know what I mean? We'd walk back down the hallway, do an about face, walk back, just to make sure. I mean, if somebody sabotaged it, then we'd catch anybody that's coming in or out. There would be two people. We'd pass each other in the middle, go down, and keep down until they were done.
A lot of people are saying today and yesterday that Conor O'Ryan, his vernacular and all this kind of stuff doesn't sound very much like a Navy SEAL. But then, interestingly, other people were commenting on it going, I was a Navy SEAL and he does sound like one. And then other people are going, I was a Navy SEAL and he doesn't sound like one. So it's like, I don't know if you can, I mean, there's probably like a general like dialect and lingo that these people have, but you know, I guess Navy SEALs could come from all over the country, right? They're probably, everyone's a little bit different. Who knows? I don't know if you can say he doesn't talk this specific way, therefore he's a complete fraud. I think that's maybe a little bit short-sighted.
I know they activated the one. I've seen them activate one, and that was the ones that all the three of them looked identical in days 2, 3, and 4. I mean, I would assume it was some kind of a reversal of gravity or magnet. I mean,
When so you saw one or more craft activated?
one covered.
One craft activated. When you knew that it was activated, did you notice anything different about it? Did it seem to come alive in any sense of the word, or was it just as inert as it always was?
It was inert as it always was, with the exception of the bottom of it being kind of blurry, like I explained, the heat coming off of a hood and the first time they activated it, it knocked out completely the whole top facility in electric. All of power. Well, then they rigged something when they did it again, and it didn't, but the static electricity was so intense that even being around the disc, we would oil our hair down. I mean, oil it down with baby oil to keep it.
Wow.
Put baby oil on us to keep our hair from staying straight up on that at all times when we pass and walk by them.
They would use baby oil because they would have to constantly walk past this craft to patrol it, and the static electricity was that strong or their hair would stand up. That's crazy. Contra says he was just at a Diddy party.
Especially, I mean, the other, some of them were nothing. They were just, but the ones in 2, 3, and 4, I think they feel that they're still, maybe, I don't know if they're flying them or not.
The bottom of S4 is actually just like some wild drug-fueled Diddy orgy with full of baby oil. That's actually what happens at the bottom of S4.
I would take a good wild guess and say that they probably were. I don't think they fly them in daylight though. I've seen them activated in daylight, but I've never seen them fly.
Did you ever see any pilots going to the craft or coming from the craft that might indicate?
No, they wheeled out none. The one in Bay 3, which is identical to 2 and 4.
Much. That is huge.
I was still back by Bay 3 walking during my periodic up and down route, and I've seen it. I mean, it just kicked on and lifted right up off the power about 2 inches. You can see it just sitting above the ground on a cushion of air.
Did you ever see a glow of any kind, a dim glow associated with the activation phase?
No, because when they did activate, it was in the middle. I mean, the sun was on, and
Something bright.
the sun was bright. I mean, in Nevada, it's pretty much all bright. There was no cloud. I mean, that you could see. I mean, I was looking out from the building, so the big.
A lot of people are saying it's buffering right now. I think Wagwan Penting just blew up the entire stream with those 20 gifted memberships. But just refresh, guys. Just try and refresh. I've just paused it for a moment. But yeah, wow, that is huge, man. Thank you.
Door that I was looking at through the building. As I said to do, turn around and keep coming back. I could never take a peripheral vision of it, except when I'd be walking back. You had to turn around. That was it. It stayed activated for about, I'd say, 4 to 5 minutes. The second
shut it down.
Then it would just shut down and it just set right down. As I say, a little flat black substance would automatically pop out of the protruding part, and it would just pick right up. I mean, it instantaneously pick right up. There was no noise from what I could hear as we got up close, but I wasn't that close. I could see it out there. As I said, I could see the blur of substance. The ground around was not, it was all pavement, so I couldn't see if there's any movement or...
No leaves or dirt were blowing.
Yeah, no leaves or dirt or anything like that. I couldn't see a glow or anything.
Well,
or any pilot or anything. I mean, they turn around and wheel it right back in again.
Did you ever get a chance to look into any of the discs at all? Open doors?
No, we weren't allowed. I just say I'd go up and I went up one time and put my breath on one because I just touched it and it felt very warm. But we were never allowed anywhere near or to get near the discs when people. I mean, we do what we can, but we never looked inside. I never looked inside. I never had any observation of inside it.
Did you ever get to see any of the craft fly?
No. I've seen them sitting on the ground like I said, that one sitting on 2 inches of cushion there. I've never seen anything craft fly. But then again, they could do that on different shifts when another sentry was there, and he could observe it, but I didn't. I've heard that they've flown them, but there again, we didn't ask no questions. Asking questions meant termination of your career immediately.
We always hear that, right, with all of these whistleblowers, and it's probably legit, right? Because that's how you just keep things compartmentalized and keep control. But they all say that asking questions just is like, you don't ask questions. You're trained to not ask questions, which is like, again, dehumanizing. Like we said yesterday, these people aren't treated like humans. They're treated like robots.
This is the ship that he saw in Bay 5. It was different from all of the previous ones.
And as he's describing these and drawing them for you, what kind of remarks is he making about these?
He's just describing it this way. He gave me colors too that I don't remember now exactly what it was. As he was sketching, he'd say that this was a kind of a yellowish and this was kind of a copperish.
What's in Bay 5?
Okay, Bay 5 is kind of a unique one. It's got some hieroglyphics on it.
Hieroglyphics on it? Okay.
Now I know because I've seen this one rotate. I've never seen it leave the ground, but I've seen it rotate.
Seen it rotate but not leave the ground.
This one is really streamlined. I would say this one's about 7 meters
Diameter, which is about 21 feet.
21 feet. This is this is the smallest disc here. Now this one's got a port bubble. You can't see through it. This is a total polished. In fact, it looks chromed. It looks like somebody is. I mean, it looks chrome.
So it sounds like what he's describing is like, the classic old school saucer with like the clear see-through top, you know. But he's saying it's chrome and you can't see through it. He's actually like a decent artist, you know what I mean? For someone who's a Navy SEAL, like his drawings are quite
How
good.
about solarized glass? Could it be something that's transparent?
Yes, it's possibly that this. I mean, the whole thing is the same exact, but you can see the different parts. This part right now, this is a rim going around it. Looking from this point of view.
Projects.
Now, this is the outer rim right here that circles the vehicle. I've seen this. I mean, they've managed to do this.
Yeah, and it's interesting that this one has hieroglyphics on it as well. Like this is interesting. $2 from Toxic Fart. Here's a couple bucks for better internet. Thank you, my mate. You know, well, to be fair, I was going to say we have shit internet down here, but there are better options. But yeah, I probably need to work on that. Thank you, bro. Any stream issues, guys, you just got to hit F5. Just refresh and it should work.
Sits flush, right, just like this.
Right on the ground.
Right on the ground. I have no idea what kind of propulsion, but they're doing a lot of work. This has been moved to the levels, sub-levels 3 and 4 quite a few times. This has got hieroglyphics on the bottom. Right here. It's like it's a name tag, like say an identification for a vehicle. Symbols of sort, like the United States warships or something they got their numbers on. The hieroglyphics are, I mean, I never have got a close look. It's something. We have photos of it. We can take a look at the photos. Something.
Then the one in Base 6 was entirely different. It was flat top and flat bottom.
Okay, then there's a gold anodized vehicle that is. It's never been activated. I've personally never seen it activated. Now it's flush on the bottom all the way.
Flat.
Mm-hmm. And it comes up with the square protrusion. Uh-huh.
I just changed a couple of settings. Let me know if it works. I don't know if it's going to lower the quality, but you guys can also change your quality, I believe, to 720p, and that might help.
Now it looks to me like, I've never seen it do it, but it looks to me like this part circles around this part.
Rotates?
Rotates around this part. Now underneath here, I've never seen underneath of this vehicle. It's always sitting on a ramp that is movable. They move around. It's like a lift.
It sits right down on the ramp.
It sits, and they're not doing a lot of work on this one right now. It's a goldish color all the way, completely.
These are relatively sharp corners.
Very extreme. I mean, everything is extremely. It looks like it was machined. I mean,
So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Is there any more bays?
there's 10 bays.
10 bays? What's in 7?
Okay, now base 7 one is one they've just pulled in. I was there when they brought it in about 4 months ago. They pulled it.
Wow, the one in Base 7 was brought in 4 months ago. And again, this is early 90s. Very interesting. Very interesting.
Which was covered with a lot of sediment and dirt. I was told it was brought from the southwest region. I don't know for sure. I'm not going to say I do. But it was apparently brought from southwest, and it was apparently.
The flying disc was apparently brought from the southwest US, and it was apparently buried deep in sediment at least 1,000 or 2,000 years old.
Apparently buried deep in sediment at least 1,000 to 2,000 years old. Now that's a round. It has a round dome top. And it too has a little protrusion down here of about 6 inches. And this one looks like a smoked, a grayish. It's not shiny. It's smoked. It cleaned up real nice. I mean, but it looks like it hasn't changed its color. I'm not any authority.
Object had bronze copper metallic finish with unknown symbols etched into the surface, giving holographic effect. Was situated over the platform. Base-like extension was part of the object and presumably retractable. Wow, the holographic is very interesting. That's what we heard. Who was that? Randy Anderson, when he was taken into some Navy deep underground base to look at this weird technology. He said he saw a gauntlet that had holographic hieroglyphics coming from it.
No visible writing on this, and there are no visible machine parts that look like they move.
No seams or joints.
There's just a seam right here, but it's like, I mean, no bolts, no nuts, no any kind of interlocking parts that is keeping this vehicle. They're still trying to figure out how to get in this when I left 6 weeks ago. They haven't yet to figure out without destroying or how to get in it. I've seen it twice. They just don't. It's been down in level 4. It was brought in. We've seen it. I watched them clean it up. Then they sent it down to level 4 one more time. Kept it for about 2 days in Bay 7, and then they brought it right back down again. And
Got you right to 7 on the corner there, so we remember which bays these were. Was there anything in Bay 8?
no, they're empty.
8, 9, and 10 are all.
8, 9, and 10 are empty.
Interesting
These are all
details there. The little details, right? Certain bays, no, they're empty. If he's bullshitting, could have bullshitted, but, you know, not saying it's true, but, you know, there's opportunity to milk it further there, but he's not going for it.
Second level. They can be brought to the first level and on up to the top when they want to. Or as I say, I don't know what's in level 3 and 4 or beyond that. But I think all these vehicles have been to another installation sometime or another before they got here, with the exception of the one they brought in from the southwest region that was
they dug out of the ground.
That they dug out of the ground. I mean, they were very excited with it being there. I mean, I overheard him saying that it was at least 1,000 to 2,000 years old in rock sediment. The vehicle itself,
That was based on the sediment
in the
that
rock.
was found in
Yeah,
Paris.
it was found in. How they found it is beyond. I have no idea. I'd say one of the most outstanding events is the arrival of the 7th disc, the one that was supposedly buried in sediment, which had sediment all over the rock. So the people there were extremely excited, which went against what we talked about before about the place being a museum. You know, I mean, I don't really know, but the facility was in a kind of an uproar. I mean, not an uproar for the good. You know, they were kind of like, the people that were there were very excited to get this disc. I don't know how it was found, how it got there, or any of that information, but I know that they were very excited. They cleaned it off and put it in Hangar 7 and dropped it to level 3. They brought it back up about a good 3 months, a good month later, and then it sat up there for a couple of days and they dropped it.
$3 from James King says Eyes on Cinema is great for historical content too. They are a fantastic channel, a great archive.
To your knowledge, they were trying to open it up and get it up.
Yes, I observed a couple times them trying to open it up while it was up in the G level.
How are they attempting to open it? What kind of tool?
They had like a scanner thing. They were walking around the thing trying to look, and one guy had was similar like a pick thing, just in the crevices looking for it. I mean, this is when it was rapidly new. I think they brought it down to level 3 for, I don't know, a radiation check or to make sure quarantine it for the first 30 days to make sure nothing's gonna come with it. Getting out of it and causing a mass, biological plague of some sort. I mean, that's what I observed here in talk. I don't know if that's the truth. I heard a thing called Project Ghostwalker referred to it a lot too. I think
people coming and going.
Yes, I think they referred Project Ghostwalker to the disc that was picked up, the most recent one found and brought there. I believe that's what they consider Project Ghostwalker.
Did you ever hear any other project names mentioned?
No. I overheard that name mentioned once, and so did one of my colleagues there.
Yeah, nice point there from Toxic Fart. Says the one in Hangar 7 looks like the Kecksburg craft, even with the hieroglyphics. Lazar said one was an archaeological find. Very interesting.
We have
the thing is though as well, like, it's worth just keeping in mind that like this did come out at the same time as Lazar. I believe Bob Lazar, by the way, but this could be out there to maybe like take the Lazar story and steer it off in a direction that they're happy with people worrying about while the truth is over here. You never know, right? You never know. 5 gifted memberships from Tezza, you legend. We just have another 5 weirdos join the club. Welcome, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Tezza. Make sure you say thank you to Tezza. And can we see some love and hearts in the chat for Tezza? Thank you.
Operational discs that our government has built from back engineering in the projects.
Mm-hmm. Here we go. We're going to get into the STS-48 video now. So I've been wanting to talk about this on the channel for ages. I've had the video downloaded. And then I realized it was in this. So I'm stoked. We can talk about it here. And I've got a little
You said
wave.
that we had craft that were up there on patrol. Tell me what sources you have for this information, and then tell me what craft are being shot at and shot down, and why this scenario is as it is.
Our operational discs, we can keep them secret because they're all operating in a special program.
This is honestly, from here on, it's like really good. I really enjoyed the rest of this.
And the people that are in the program are recruited in a recruiting stage. We identify people that have limited family ties, foster parents that they don't maintain contact with, so they're outright orphans, or they've lost their parents or something like that. That are unmarried, young men that are unmarried, fit, otherwise qualified in every way, but don't have strong outside contact. And they recruit them, they identify them early on when they're processing the incoming cadets to the academy, assigned to the secret Air Force Academy on the other side of the mountain, out there in Colorado Springs. And few of the instructors know anything about the other academy, which has special instructors, special trainings programs, and they train the disc operators and the disc maintenance men. And they're all trained in a special facility. They come out with special grades and special pay scales, and they're assigned to special organizations that are closed organizations. People don't.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He could just be literally straight up corroborating everything you said. 100% could be true as well.
Rotated. They're assigned there for their career. They don't talk because when they're recruited, they're shown that they're getting better paid than anybody else. They're getting all the perks life can give them. They have their internal recreation. They have their internal facility. Get the best food, the best pay, the best clothes, the best environment, everything, the best and top of the line. And they're constantly reminded that they are a special elite force. And to break any of the rules is not only to be kicked out of the force, but probably if you're not allowed to leave the force alive. So it often means.
Wow. I mean, we've looked at this badge in the badge deep dive that we did. I did not realize that the Latin on it said, "Let them hate so long as they fear." That's creepy. Goldzen TV, welcome aboard, brother. You're a certified weirdo. Thank you for joining the members club. Some love and hearts, please, for our latest weirdo.
It's a death sentence too, and they know this, and they live that lifetime. It's a career lifetime. It's in all the other services you rotate on your job. Here in this group, you don't rotate. The organization remains the same. There remains the same people in it for an entire career. And when they retire out, they simply move from a high-level active position to a high-level support position in the same facility. Stay there till they die. So the perks are great and the punishments are severe. They're very.
Mike, no, mate. This is it's from the same set of footage, but we're kind of watching through it each night. There's about 6 hours of footage, and I've sort of cut it down a little bit, and we're kind of going to go through it over the next couple of days.
A little comes out.
To
All right, here
orient
we go.
you, the glowing curved line unevenly dividing the
Listen up, pay attention.
dark upper right portion of your screen from the larger gray tone portion to the lower left is the airglow layer of our atmosphere. It begins about 40 miles above the surface of the Earth and dissipates at an altitude of approximately 60 miles. Don't confuse this glowing line with the actual solid horizon of the planet, indicated on the NASA video by the little electronic registration marker at the upper left. This real horizon is slightly darker, opaque, 40 miles below. That's the actual Earth's surface. Remember, the shuttle's flying 355 miles above that surface, about 300 miles in airless space above the airglow. Now pay attention to your screen at the top center. You will see a dot of light appear and begin to move from right to left. Watch carefully. The dot will turn hard right in apparent response to a brief flash from the lower left. 3 seconds later, two contrails move sharply upward from the lower left. In my opinion, The NASA shuttle video you have just seen is among the most extraordinary pieces of footage in television history. Some of you may have seen parts of this extraordinary NASA footage elsewhere. It's made the rounds of several national television shows. It's also become something of a classic among UFO enthusiasts who see the extraordinary physics and automatically assume we're seeing aliens. From NASA, the official explanation of what you've just seen is that it's anything but aliens or high-performance spacecraft. When you see the shuttle video in fast motion, the stunning anomalous movement of these anomalous objects really stands out. When I first saw the shuttle tape, I was overwhelmed. If these are not mere ice flakes or something equally mundane, their existence and their behavior is confirming the fundamentals of our entire hypothesis and 10-year investigation. If we can...
The fact that these even get suggested that they are ice particles is ridiculous. They would have to be enormous chunks of, they wouldn't be particles, they would be like floating icebergs. And icebergs don't just change a direction on their own.
Can prove that these objects we are seeing are in the atmosphere, then they have to be at least several hundred miles from the shuttle's camera. To see ice or other debris at that distance, it would have to be bigger than the shuttle itself. The physical horizon of the Earth is the distance reference visible throughout the entire NASA video. The fact that one key glowing come up over that horizon.
So you guys just making sure you haven't missed it, because the footage isn't the clearest, but obviously there's that giant beam. After there's a flash, and then this object darts away, and then there's that giant beam. So make sure you keep an eye out for the giant beam, because that's kind of what we're going to be diving into.
Was to us a vital clue to the possible importance of this fixed reference point in space to solving the entire distance problem from the shuttle. So let's look at our video again in close-up. Pay careful attention to what I call the target object, which now suddenly pops on, then moves smoothly to the left. Its behavior is exactly like something suddenly popping into view by coming over the physical, very opaque horizon of the Earth. Let's take another look at that. If we can prove that that's exactly what we're seeing, then this simple fact, if we can establish that it is a fact, automatically fixes the object's distance in relation to the shuttle as the distance to that horizon, and the airglow 40 miles above it. At the peculiar flash, the dot immediately turns hard right and undergoes extreme acceleration, heading upward on our two-dimensional TV screen across the airglow limb.
Listen to this.
This limb, which we have just established is some 1,700 miles from the space shuttle, physically marks the boundary between the upper atmosphere and airless space. At the precise moment that our object crosses this bright limb, it dims out, as if someone was turning down a light. The glowing object we are seeing is at the physical horizon of the Earth, in the atmosphere, some 1,700 miles from the shuttle's TV camera. If the glowing dot were only debris lit by sunlight, as NASA flatly argues, the object's sudden upward motion must make it brighter, because it's flying into growing daylight. Instead, the dot grows dimmer, consistent with a much more distant physical location, because the Earth's horizon, 1,700 miles behind the shuttle, is still in total darkness. NASA's
Wild.
explanation for the flash is that you're seeing a thruster firing aboard the shuttle. If
It's a thruster firing aboard the shuttle. Like they really think people are so dumb.
this were true,
Holy moly. $100 from Wagwan Penting. Wow. That is actually shocking, especially after you just gifted 20 memberships. Thank you. He says, hey Josh, really loving the content, bro. I don't usually get to watch them live, but glad I could finally tune in. Keep up the staunch work, and big ups the weirdos in the chat. Big ups you, bro. Big ups to Wagwan Penting, you absolute boss. Thank you, mate. That's actually unreal. It means a lot. Thank you, dude.
the thruster firing would change the attitude of the entire shuttle and therefore the direction of the setting stars. Since this does not occur, this cannot be the explanation for what we've been observing. The calculations say that this object had to also be at least as far away from the space shuttle as the airglow, therefore fixing its distance in terms of simple physics as 1,700 miles away.
Lots of love for Wagwan Penting in the chat. Very deserved. Even made my cheeks go a little red. Thank you, bro.
Since we have now established beyond any reasonable doubt this fascinating object's distance from the shuttle, the rest is easy. They have slightly
Yeah, don't worry. I'll probably get off dial-up after that donation. We're going to get broadband.
unbelievable. Our little dot is in fact drifting along at a leisurely pace of some 15 miles per second. That's about 54,000 miles per hour. We say it's drifting because when you see our little target object react to that peculiar flash,
Listen to the speeds that he talks about.
that you're quite familiar with by now, the undisputed star of our update accelerates in less than 2 seconds to over 200,000 miles per hour.
200,000 miles per hour is what this guy's estimating this thing moves away at. Insane.
And for those of you who may be wondering how many G's this little guy experiences when it accelerates in reaction to that flash, its numbers clock out at a cool 14,000 times the Earth's gravitational acceleration. A force of 14,000 G's is roughly equivalent to dropping a 10-story building on top of you. 200,000 miles per hour in less than 2 seconds, 14,000 G's. Obviously, nothing in our space technology can even begin to approach numbers like this and have pilots survive. In fact, nothing in our known laws of physics provides for propulsive performances and capabilities such as those we've just observed. But this is well within, in fact, it is implicit in any hyperdimensional technologies capable of literally altering gravity. We have calculated the actual velocities of these two peculiar streaks of light. They are indeed consistent with a much publicized Star Wars weapon system from the Pentagon called Brilliant Pebbles. Essentially a high-tech shotgun burst of thousands of tiny plastic pellets, accelerated to about 1,000 miles per second by an electromagnetic accelerator called a railgun. If this is true, the flash you're seeing is not light. It's an effect in the camera created by the electromagnetic pulse that accelerates the brilliant pebbles. Quite a weapon, but no match for a vehicle capable of nimbly darting away at over 14,000 Gs, as we've seen. The target, you now see why we've been
Josh Bartlett, you just wait. You just wait.
calling our little glowing dot by this peculiar name, in fact, evades this shot with ease. This and a host of other actions by all the other anomalous dots present in this sequence, which we haven't time to talk about, has led us to this amazing conclusion, that the shuttle cameras that night somehow showed us an active Star Wars weapon system in Earth orbit, and the system is using our own American hyperdimensional technology.
Wild, right? Very wild. Look, I'll just quickly say, I'm not on the best internet plan, but I have about 20 megabytes upload, which I know isn't heaps, but it should be enough to do this. So I'm very quickly, I'm just going to, while I play the next clip, I'm going to try and adjust my bit rate, and I want you guys to let me know if it makes it better or worse, okay?
At the time that I first saw that tape, I didn't know that we had this shade craft on patrol with beam weapons. I didn't know that. But since then...
Actually, okay, so people have already spoken about railguns, so what we'll do is we're going to move to another clip quickly, and this is actually me talking. It's from the deep dive that I did on Pine Gap. So this is someone who wrote into me. There's two different people who wrote into me about things they've seen or heard about Pine Gap. And I just thought, given what we've just seen and what we're about to look into from Wendell Stevens next, I wanted to just show you guys this. It says, "Hi Josh, sorry, no LiDAR scans here. Just info I've gleaned over the years. I've not heard any UFO stories, but nothing would surprise me at this point. Canberra houses the US military's top state-of-the-art war room. It is a massive multi-level underground complex beneath most of Canberra. Once inside the main room, monitors display live feeds from every current theatre of war. It has hidden entry points like defunct phone exchange buildings. Many top brass military men can be seen entering or leaving, and it has raised questions with nosy locals wondering how such small buildings can hold so many staff members." This is where it gets juicy. I've just tried to change my bitrate, so I don't know. Let's see how it goes. This complex connects Pine Gap via a lev train, so that's like a magnetic levitation train. Pine Gap houses a 1.5 kilometer long railgun. Imagine a giant Nike swoop. A beam of light is shot down it, bounces off the ionosphere, and gives them a real-time view of all flight paths on the entire globe. Okay, so from that email, we've got more confirmation of there being just a whole other world underneath Canberra. Interestingly, worse. Yeah, I thought it would be. I thought it would be. Okay, let me fix it back for you guys. Someone said Josh loves watching himself. I really don't. but it's relevant. No one loves watching themselves, bro. Everyone watches themselves and goes, do I actually sound like that? That's cooked. Talking about a magnetic levitation train that goes from a war room within Canberra directly to Pine Gap, which is wild. And obviously, I can't prove this, but I wouldn't be surprised at all because of, like, especially considering like the location of Pine Gap. It is so remote. It's so far to get there. A high-speed train that is direct would make sense if it needs to be accessed by companies that already have billions of dollars. They probably funded it with the billions that can't be accounted for by the Pentagon each year, to be honest. That was funny. I'll give myself that. That was good. But the other big thing was, Pine Gap houses a 1.5 kilometer long railgun that shoots a beam of light into the ionosphere. Now, this person's email came in like pretty chill, pretty casual, just like, hey, what's up? Threw out some kind of crazy claims that I can't verify, but are very interesting. But the 1.5 kilometer railgun thing, I was kind of like, I don't know. Like, just trying to imagine what a 1.5 kilometer long gun looks like is just... Maka, this is actually my twin brother. He streams in the other room. It's like hard to fathom. Like, it's just hard to even picture that. So I really didn't think too much more of that, right? Okay. But then I got this email from another person.
Oh, tell me about it.
And this person went into far greater detail, giving me some of their background credentials, before also sharing a long list of sightings and experiences that they had in this area.
Wow, sounds
now,
cool.
That's what we're going to get into. Okay,
I'm excited.
We're just going to focus on this one place called the Simpsons Gap in this video. And the Simpsons Gap is only about 15 kilometers north to northwest of Pine Gap. Like, this is far closer than anything we've talked about or looked at in this video so far. Now, first, I'll give you this guy's background that he shared with me. He says, I'll just kind of dot point this for you before we get into his experiences. Born in 1966, grew up in South Australia, frequently camping in the Flinders Ranges, which is a giant sort of rural remote range in South Australia. Family is mostly professional teachers and principals, engineers, and some former military. Personal qualifications include Aboriginal studies and conservation and environmental sciences. Years of bushwalking experiences in the Flinders Ranges and McDonnell Ranges in the Northern Territory. He was enlisted in the Australian Defence Force doing reserve reconnaissance across the Northern Territory, mostly with Indigenous troops. Lived more than 20 years in the Northern Territory, entirely embedded culturally, and married into a Central Australian Arunta, or I think I'm saying that right, Arunta tribal family, and can speak the Arunta language.
I feel like there's so much that, like, we really need to listen to our native cultures a lot more. I find this stuff so interesting.
Working and traveling with practicing shamanic family elders, and was later employed as the cultural officer with the Healing Center in Alice Springs. Now, this person shared a long list of things, and I won't read them all because who knows, maybe he will come on the show one day and we can talk.
He nearly did come on the show, by the way. We tried to tee up a call a couple of times and it just kind of never eventuated, unfortunately. But who knows, maybe it could still happen one day.
Talk about it more, get a bit more details and context. But for now, we're just going to focus on the surrounding area of Pine Gap. And you can see there, he sort of references Alice Springs quite a few times. So he says up the top there, these sightings happened from 1991 to 99, multiple sightings whilst living on the Arunta outstation, which is adjacent to the Simpsons Gap, about 17 kilometers west of Alice Springs, or 6 to 7 kilometers northeast of Pine Gap. Okay, so these sightings are generally taking place between where you can see Simpsons Gap and Alice Springs. And he's saying this is about 6 to 7 kilometers northeast of Pine Gap. So super close. Late at night, sometime in the mid-late 90s, I was stargazing on the outstation just west of Simpsons Gap during a lightning storm. I was facing north when from a distant site over the mountains and northwest of Simpsons Gap, not Pine Gap, a lesser-known military site along the Tanami Highway, officially part of the Jindalee over-the-horizon radar, a massive beam of light/plasma fired into the night sky, angling to the east. That massive beam was also wrapped in a perfect double helix of light or plasma. The beam source was over 15 kilometers away from where I was standing. The width of the beam must have been over 500 meters at its base. Immensely powerful.
So pretty wild stuff, right? Considering what we've just saw. Jimbo says your voice has gotten deeper. Yes, my balls dropped 3 weeks ago, actually. Shane Alders says space shuttle footage STS-48 shows an attempted shoot down of a space drone or UAP.
Interesting, Shane. It'd be great if we could look at that footage on this channel. If anyone could link me, it'd be really cool if we could look at that. Sorry.
I learned that we have them on regular patrol. It's U.S.
military has disc
U.S.
shape.
military has disc-shaped craft that patrol in orbit, and they do shoot down visitors.
First off, how are they able to go undetected?
Well, we know where they are, and we know that the Russians have some up there too.
Where are they?
They're not in orbit because they move around. They're not confined to orbits. They're on patrol up there.
I feel like at this point in the interview, Wendell Stevens starts saying things that feel like they might come from just his assumptions or him trying to connect dots, because he doesn't really sort of like back it up with anything. But, you know, I don't know. I just think that's worth mentioning. Some of the things he says here, I was a bit like, how do you know that?
How many?
I don't know how many are on patrol at a time, but we have 2 squadrons of them that are running these patrols.
Squadron being how many in the
A
squadron?
squadron of fighter airplanes is 15 airplanes, 15 vehicles.
So
I don't know what a UFO squadron or a disc squadron is, but if it's 10 vehicles, that's 20 vehicles available. There's probably 2 on patrol all the time.
are these the result of successful back engineering projects?
Yeah. The discs are not built by one company. The modules are built by different companies, so no one company has the whole vehicle.
And then assembled
And then assembled by the government out at Lancaster, and then flown to their
Lancaster where?
Lancaster, California.
What base is that associated with?
Edwards.
Edwards.
And then they're flown to their operating facility. I understand there's one out in California near Point Mugu and one under Beale Air Force Base. But the operational discs were built, the ones that are on patrol were built over 10 years ago. And they evolved from the gravity control technology that was developed at Alice Springs out in
Hell says, I've posted the STS-48 footage in Discord, not that Josh ever bothers to look at it. Yeah, Josh is never in Discord. I fucking hate that guy.
Australia. And from that we designed operational discs to go on patrol. This was the original Star Wars project that was envisioned by
Toxic Fight, I was being sarcastic.
President Reagan. Yeah,
That's why it was funny,
put up for
because we
Star
just looked
Wars
at it.
was really put up to finish the development of the operational discs, but we let the public think we're spending it on telescopes and other research materials. They're probably doing that too, but the impetus for the Star Wars program was to get patrols in space. I think that operational discs were used the first time on the first Iraq War, when we went in there and pinpointed all the command and control facilities and took them out in one night. We alleged.
So like stuff like this, he's saying we used UFOs that were put into service during the 1983 Star Wars project. We used them for the first time in the 1991 Gulf War. I mean, maybe, but like that's a pretty hectic thing to say. To just say, like, you should at least put some like reservations on that, I think.
That the F-117s did it, but the F-117s couldn't sit still and target an object and remain on it. Hold on.
I mean, again, though, like he does have a point. He's talking about the F-117's capabilities don't line up with what happened, and he is a lieutenant colonel from the Air Force. But I mean, these are still very big claims. That's all I'm saying.
A laser beam on it, and the F-117s made a noise. There's a lot of reasons why it probably was not an F-117, although that's what we said did it. I think that we used our operational discs that are nearby to go in, and they're invisible and they make no noise and they can sit still in the air, and they just put the beam on the targets, and the missiles came in and homed on the beam. These organizations they have the operator under their own command structure. They don't report up through the chief of staff of the Army, the Air Force, Navy, or anybody else. They have their own line, and it probably reports only to the secret government, not anybody else in between. They are on patrol, have been for 10 years. They carry beam weapons. They solve the gravity control problem. They don't carry a lot of fuel. Gary McKinnon, the computer nerd.
Here we go. Getting into a little bit of Gary McKinnon now. So if you don't know who this guy is, famous hacker, I think in 2002, broke into a network of computers from the US military and allegedly saw documents of off-world fleets. That's what they were titled, according to him, and a photo of an off-world craft.
Super interesting. I think we should do a deep dive on him.
In London that broke into black projects
Right.
and got this information. That hasn't been published in the newspapers. We've been very carefully trying to cover up what he might have known, but the underground knows. I think one of the reasons we're trying desperately to get Gary McKinnon in our hands here in this country is to successfully discredit what he has said about the black projects that involve a space carrier fleet. He says that he have.
It's the submarines, bro. It's the submarines, I'm telling you.
3 super space carriers out there, like aircraft carriers, that carry operational discs that have beam weapons. He even found the names of the 3 craft. They're christened with names like battleships. And he found the complement of discs that are aboard and who's managing them and a number of things. And he claimed in the black project research he was doing, he's trying to deny that he saw this information now.
Kylan says, remember, yeah, Impossible on Demand. Miracles by Appointment, I believe, was the second half of that badge.
We want to get him here to silence him because he apparently discovered something that we don't want our public to know.
I'll just read this. This is a quote from Gary McKinnon. I saw halfway between the top of the Earth's hemisphere and the bottom of the picture, there was a classic sort of cigar-shaped object, but with golf ball domes, geodesic domes above, below. It had very slightly flattened cigar ends, no seams, no rivets, no telemetry antenna or anything like that. It looked like that or anything. It had just had a feeling of not being man-made. There was none of the signs of human manufacturing. Interesting.
We do have patrol craft out there, carrier size. It carries a number of patrol discs aboard and can launch and recover them anytime and any place they want to. When they return to the surface to be serviced, their operational facilities are entirely underground, just like the deployed squadrons. All he found was names, that they were carrier craft, that they have a live aboard complement, that the names of the commanders are not known because those that enter these programs have their names changed and their families are notified that they were killed in a military accident and can't come back to an identity again.
That's really interesting, and it's not an exact comparison, but in the interview I did with Reese Dalton Morgan when he was talking about his grandfather who ran the Woomera test range, he flew as a ghost pilot for the United States military. So he was an RAF pilot originally, and then he flew as a ghost pilot, which means he flew planes under the name of pilots who were already deceased. And like, there's no more information on that. Like, you don't know who they were, how they passed away, anything like that. But he flew planes under an alias for the United States military. That's wild, especially considering he wasn't even an American.
What's your overall opinion then about us having a UFO fleet? Valid or?
Well, yeah, I think we have. I'm aware of 4 squadrons at least, and there may be more. And a squadron of aircraft, fighter aircraft, consists of 15 airframes. So I would guess that a squadron of discs must be 12 to 15 discs. The crew members are all picked out from the plebes that go into the Air Academy, and there are probably some taken from other academies too that are identified when they clear in as being unmarried, have no close relatives, have...
This is what I mean, where he's getting quite speculative, talking about fleets of UFOs, and, you know, it's who would really know. Big Ol says the computer that he hacked had a default user password. Yeah, he says that in his interviews, that it was literally just like default. He said it was more like going phishing than hacking, that he was just like doing basic like checking of default names and shit, and he just got in, which is like hard to believe that they would leave such classified wild information so open like that. But this was like 2001, I believe, or like 2002. So who knows?
They're orphans or have foster parents and not making close contact with, not going to be missed. And once they get in the program and experience the perks and the benefits and the dangers of trying to get out of it, they're there forever. That's a career job, and they don't change positions. They remain in the same job until they retire, and they work in it again as in civilian status after that.
Here we go. The S4 physicist Sorry, the S4 engineer who built UFO simulators for the pilots to try and learn to fly.
He gave them to me one time, long time.
Back about what year?
Oh gosh, about 1990.
1990. And how many years did you keep in contact with him? Or are you still in contact?
I was in contact with him up till a year ago. I haven't heard from him. He may have died now. He was an older man.
What city was he living in?
He was living in Las Vegas the last time. He went back. He was from Kansas, and he when he retired about 10 years ago, he wanted to go back to Kansas, to where he was raised, his boyhood hometown. And he and his wife began making plans to go back and look at property there. As soon as they made several telephone calls and began firming up their plans, his wife came down with a brain tumor. They took her to the hospital, military hospital, of course, there at the facility at Area 51, where they removed a tumor bigger than a golf ball. And that incapacitated her for a long time. And it took her a couple of years to recover. As soon as she got where she felt reasonably well again, they began the telephone calls once more, and then she comes down with the second fast-growing brain tumor. This time it was bigger than an orange when they took it out. And she never fully recovered from that. So they stayed out there in Vegas where she had to be treated regularly. She had to keep going back to the neurosurgeons, and he couldn't afford to do it anyplace else. So they had him captive there. And
That's wild. This guy who had seen some shit wanted to move away, and then his wife suddenly got a brain tumor, and she got treated for it at Area 51, and then it kept coming back, and they were essentially dependent on Area 51 to cure her brain tumor. And a lot of people talk about these things like, you know, they're like cancer weapons. There are cancer weapons. You hear about it all the time. I'm you know, that's one way to keep someone who could be a whistleblower just, you know, close enough to manage. $15 from Hubert McMillan. Thanks from Bundy. Keep it up, Josh. Space subs for sure. Absolutely, my bro. Submarines are in space. I'm telling you. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
He couldn't go anyplace, and they had him under control. And in my own mind, I'm not so sure that wasn't induced just to keep him there and keep him out of circulation. He was a simulator engineer. Started out as a late trainer technician, and then as the science grew, he grew with it, going to the schools as it evolved, until he became a simulator technician and builder out there, building the machines to teach pilots to fly airplanes that had never been flown before. We began to assemble our new airplanes at Lancaster and take them out to Area 51 for testing. So that Bill Uhouse was involved in that also, and in the simulator training of the pilots.
After some experience flying in World War II and as the first generation of jets were being developed by the U.S. Air Force, Bill Uhouse gradually became involved in the development of jet simulators. These simulators were built alongside the jet prototypes and were exact replicas of the jet aircraft, from the cockpit down to the steps on the side of the plane. The simulators were programmed to allow the pilot who was training on the jet prototype simulator to experience anomalies that he would likely experience in the actual jet. Changes to a jet's production design would come into the engineers even up to the last days before coming off design, going into its initial production run, or even just before its test flights. Uhouse and crew would have to repeatedly modify the simulator's complicated and bulky electronics, instrumentation, and avionics to make the simulator remain identical to the jet prototype.
So S4 became a simulator facility to train pilots to fly our new aircraft, our new generation aircraft.
After nearly 5 years in jet simulation, Uhouse claimed that he was recruited into a very secret project. I didn't know what it was. We didn't know. The fellows I was with at the time, we had no idea what we were doing and exactly what we were going to build. Everything is compartmentalized. You have your electrical design, your mechanical, your instrumentation, and so forth. And if I had a question that might have been related to instrumentation or some electrical portion, I'd have to go back through my boss, and he'd have to go through various chains, and then I'd get the information back. Uhouse claimed that the strictest security was employed, which he labeled BS, humiliating, and degrading. When Uhouse decided to relocate to Las Vegas, security officers went through every possession in his home and then physically searched him, even looking over.
I had to blur this stuff out, by the way, because it was just like too graphic. And also, like, I don't know if you can verify that, like, these photos are actually, you know, people getting searched at S4, which is what they're alluding to, right? I can tell you that these photos could be anything. Okay, like they're graphic, but there's, you know, they could be from anywhere.
His skin to see if he had written down anything top secret on his body. The only thing they can't take away is what I've got up here, and he pointed to his head. That's the only thing. And I want to say again about the security in this particular level of security and activity. It's a different type of security. You have permanent security officers that are assigned to you. I know I had one for 20 years. 20 years this guy was my security officer to monitor me. Uhouse testified at the 1993 International UFO Congress in Nevada that the secret project was specifically for gathering crashed extraterrestrial avionics that had been seized from private and public lands by the U.S. military from the late 1940s and early 50s, and taking the retrieved flying discs apart and back engineering the avionics. Uhouse named Roswell, Aztec, and Kingman as sites of these crash retrieval operations. The one at Kingman was more or less the one that came down where there were some live bodies. That particular one, I know about the flight deck and the instrumentation that they brought in. Uhouse explained that not even the best American pilot could fly an alien disc because of the vast differences in avionics and propulsion systems, along with vast differences in the language used in transmitting flight data to the pilot.
I just want to read this thing here. This is from Bill Uhouse. It says the Kingman crash, that's the one they picked up, and that's the one we redesigned to fly. Was the one that landed at Kingman. The reason why we picked that one out to fly, it was very similar, but less complicated. It didn't have a lot of things that you needed to really get into this thing and get experience and fly the damn thing. So what they wanted to do was take the easiest first, which they did. Interesting. And guys, the next episode that we do in this, we're actually I've found an interview with Bill, and it's not in this series, but I found it, and we'll look at that. And $5, would you please add the link to this 6-hour video to the description? All I see is hashtags. Brother, it's not from YouTube. I didn't get this from YouTube. I don't have a link for it, unfortunately. Sorry, bro.
What we were doing was taking the technology and transferring it into known technology with instruments that we are aware of that our pilots could use and people on Earth were familiar with.
They were trying to bridge the gap between the alien technology and ours so we could learn to operate their ships. And they never succeeded in bridging the gap. They could never convert the alien controls to toggles and switches and buttons. And so in 30 years of trying, they never succeeded. We thought.
Interesting. We've never been able to convert the alien tech to switches and buttons because, as we hear, it's all consciousness. It's all consciousness related. It's super interesting.
Solutions. But we couldn't reach those solutions by their method because we didn't understand their technology. However, knowing that a solution exists, we found other ways to some of these solutions, like solid-state electronics and laser technology and a number of things.
It's interesting that, yeah, he talks about how, like, we kind of just, like, you know, what's the word? You know, you kind of like Frankenstein your own version of it together, which is what people have said. We've heard that kind of stuff before, that we kind of just like, we've kind of got half a UFO, but we got to kind of like Frankenstein the rest of it to make it fully work, and it's not quite the same as the alien vehicles. Josh is trying to interview Michael Schratt. Jack, I was actually thinking about reaching out to him like 2 days ago. Fantastic researcher, interesting history, and a lot of great work. I would love to get him on the channel.
First thing they noticed is when they pulled the modules out of the panels, the modules continued to work. There's no wires, no lights or nothing. They could put them any place and they still operate. And then plug them back in and they function.
One of the first things that we were on was to join metal without nuts and bolts. That is to put two pieces of metal together without glue, nuts, bolts, or whatever. What we were going to do is make the aircraft lighter. Uhouse goes on to explain the details of this phase of mechanical engineering. We finally did it after about 3 or 4 years of putting these two pieces of steel together. Of course, there were curvatures and so forth, and angles that we had to make to see, you know, with this material, and we finally did. It was years later, after we got through our training with the simulators in this particular portion of the project, before we found out exactly where and how this process was going to be used.
Oh, I wanted to try and read that, but it's gone.
On the simulator, since it was large, I'm going to go with the 29-footer, which it was, it had to be done in sections, and these sections had adjoining L-type separations. Some were pi sections, some were hexagons, some were squares, and the equipment that we built was in individual pods, so to speak.
Josh, would you entertain trying to get Giorgiani on if possible? JL, I would love to get Giorgiani on the show once. More than once, actually.
his interviews on Danny Jones are just like phenomenal. I would love to go down those rabbit holes with him. And, you know, I would be stoking his fire. You know, when he starts talking about Nazis on the moon, I would just be going, yes, Jason, yes. Keep going, baby.
For example, the flight deck, the avionics, that was split up into about 3 different ones. But when they broke it all apart and shipped the unit, and they put it back together, it would all fit just like a jigsaw puzzle. It worked out well, real well. Like I said, all I did was the mechanical part of it. I knew nothing about the instrumentation on it. We were the mechanical design engineers for the avionics that's for the flight deck. On this particular thing, the portions that I was involved in were the flight deck and the equipment bay being the bottom of the particular disc. Uhaus claimed that these top-secret disc projects went quickly into development in the 1950s. He also testified that he had seen operational discs flying in New Mexico. Sure, they're flying discs around. We started back on the simulators back in the 50s. Uhaus admits that he has very little knowledge of the disc's propulsion systems. Whether or not they go into time warp, that I don't understand. I know they go into some other motive speed that I'm not familiar with. The reason why you see them go so fast, you see it now and then you see it over there, is because they power down and the ship is visible. They actually power down the ship, so now the ship's visible, so when they power back up and reappear over there, that's what you're seeing.
Interesting. I mean, like, obviously this footage that's up now is something else, but like some of that footage was kind of interesting. I would love to know like the origin of it and where that came from. And some of the things that they're saying there about the fact that like all the parts on these things are made separately by separate companies, and then so people don't even know what they're making. And like, yeah, that's what you hear about with like the Manhattan Project, right? People don't know what they're making.
Referencing Bob Lazar, Uhaus has several observations. If everyone here has seen Bob Lazar's poster, that's the closest thing you'll see until you see the real one of a flying disc. The reason why Lazar got out there so fast was because of Teller. All Teller had to do was write that letter and sign it. And I'm sure they were investigating him while they put these Gestapo guys on his butt. And that's like it is. I met a fellow and his name was Gene Huff. As a matter of fact, he knew Bob Lazar and he did the appraisals on my house. He had mentioned UFOs and so forth, and of course I didn't say anything. He gave me some information. I bought some books and started reading and so forth. And then, of course, Bob Lazar had come on TV and I'd watched that program and I said, boy, stuff is leaking out fast.
The Alien project was a side project that very few people know about. It was a highly classified side project. The habitat was apart from everything else in S4. They keep their ship there. They can come and go as they please. They're not detained.
Uhaus refers back to the live bodies from the Kingman crash and claims that he had several occasions to work with a living extraterrestrial during.
This is where it gets really interesting. So he's talking about this extraterrestrial called Jared, or I think this is like the same thing that I think Dan Burrish talks about as J-Rod. This is likely the same thing, well, it's not the same person, same alien. Likely a survivor of the Kingman, Arizona UFO crash. Paired with Jared at S4 during the back engineering of alien discraft collected from crash retrievals brought back to the S4 facility of Area 51.
The engineering process. When they first introduced us to the Greys, it was sort of a long period of sessions that we went through, but finally they did, but it was only on a limited, like 2 or 3 minutes or whatever. And the other thing, if they speak to you, you're going to hear it in your own voice.
In your head. Telepathy. Again, the recurring themes are all there. A lot of people saying the lag is ruining it. Yeah, I'm sorry guys, there's not much I can do. I will look into better internet, but you might just have to watch it back after.
The agreement, as I understood it, was that the aliens would give us some technology, help us with some technology, and they did this in the form of delivering one of their spacecraft with 2 operators, pilots. And before they delivered the spacecraft and the pilots, they laid a requirement on us, which I got this from the man that built it now, a requirement on us to build a proper habitat for their visitors, for them to live in. And so we did this out at Area 51, in the S4 area of Area 51, where Bill Uhaus, who I later made the acquaintance of, he told me that when the agreement was reached and they got the specifications for the habitat, he was given part of the job. He was an engineer at Area 51, and he was on the team that was given the job of providing the habitat. He particularly worked on their sanitary facilities. He said the bathroom had 2 nozzles in the wall, one for water and one for an enzyme that the aliens brought from their home planet that was it was held in a tank. It was evidently a living enzyme. It was held in a tank, and it was dispensed through a nozzle which they lathed over their skin, then rubbed it in and stood there for a few minutes until it cleaned their skin, whatever it was. And it might have nourished them too. And then after that interval, it was washed off with the shower nozzle, and everything was collected in the basin. The enzyme was filtered out and put back in the enzyme tank, and the water was flushed away. And
Whoa.
so I said, well, what did they eat? He said that was another problem. He said they brought a culture from their home planet of...
He's talking about aliens that were found in the Kingman crash, by the way. It's like, this is wild.
primary order foods like fungi and spores and chlorophyll, and I don't know what was in it, but it was all simple foods that require less digestion. What we eat is complicated. It starts with the simple foods and gets more complex and more complex and more complex until the meat we eat is about 4 or 5 or 6 generations away from the primary source. And there are things that are added and things that are lost in the process. So our food is not very nutritious. Their food was supremely nutritious for them. And it took little to digest it because it's in lower forms already. And so we had to culture that and provide it to them as a diet. Proper eating facility. All these had to be built to make them comfortable. Sleeping, they had special sleeping requirements, and all this was built in to their little habitat facility out there in S4.
That he's saying they've had to like accommodate and facilitate for this species, build these systems so they can live comfortably. Like, that sounds like, are we doing that because we're just super hospitable and we want to look after our guests? Or are we being told that's what we're doing?
And they when it was complete, they came in and inspected it and left the ship and 2 men and took 2 American scientists back to their home planet on a trade up.
Isn't that like Project Serpo? That's the whole. I don't know enough about that to like talk in depth about it. But the idea of Project Serpo, I think, is about an exchange program of scientists. Like, we take some of yours and you take some of ours. And it's like an exchange every few years, I believe. Like, that's obviously, wild territory for sure, but that sounds like what Wendell just explained.
They wore a shirt and a pair of pants. Their shoes were a little different. And this guy's name is J-Rod. Imagine that. J-A-R-O-D. That's a translation from whatever they had given the translators at the facility that I worked at. There's a lot of linguists. There's so many people involved in this whole particular project. Describe fully what this alien looked like.
Well, he had a disproportionately large head, disproportionately large oblique
There you go, Serpo in the picture. I was right. I don't know enough about it though.
eyes, black, very little nose, just 2 vertical slits for a nares, for a nose. The ears had no shell in the ears; they were just a slight bump in a membrane. The mouth was just a slit, a narrow, no fleshy lips. It was almost a lipless mouth. And the chin was kind of pointed. The neck was slender and weak looking. No hair at all. The skin was a different skin texture. It was more like the skin of a fine skinned beaded lizard. And it seemed to be very flexible in all directions. There was no muscular activity in the face. The creature couldn't smile, couldn't grimace, couldn't laugh or anything like that. Could openly close his mouth, but he only, his expression was all in his eyes when Bill could see him around the table. The lenses are too dark to see anything. So he didn't manifest any expressions, like possibly motion with his hands or something of surprise.
Did Bill say what planetary system or solar system?
No, he said that he had a feeling that he came from Reticulum, but the alien couldn't talk because he has no vocal cords. He has no opening in the back of his mouth at all. The mouth cavity only went back about 4.5 inches, and the mouth cavity was filled with many folds of tissue. And they took the alimentation into the mouth cavity, and a stiff, raspy tongue in the back of it moved it around among the tissue, and the nutrient was absorbed directly into the bloodstream through the tissues in the mouth, and the waste would just spit out like that. And the alimentation that was provided to the aliens at Area 51, Bill said, came in 2 forms. One was tablets that we made of their nourishment, was pressed into tablet form, and so they could carry it around in their pockets. And the other form was a paste that was put in a tube and squeezed in their mouth.
That's wild.
that we made tablets and paste for these aliens to keep up their nutrition. I mean, it's pretty wild details that we're hearing here. And yeah, I think a natural segue from this series that we're doing probably makes sense to do the Dan Borish video next. Maybe not straight away, maybe in like a week or two, but I think that's a good next step to go to.
It was confusing for me for many years since I didn't know what the heck I was working on. After a while, it became apparent that what we were doing was a little bit different than what we normally do on this earth with our sciences. It was sciences from somewhere else. This J-Rod fellow, he was a science translator. We had these big groups of people that were taking information, all these characters and symbols and so forth and so on, and he was assisting those people. We didn't see him very often. Maybe I saw this gentleman about once in a year.
He called the alien a gentleman.
So Bill Uhouse spent 20-some years trying to bridge the gap, and he often would find himself working under the instrumentation consoles of theirs or ours in a situation where he could see an iris and a pupil behind that black onyx-looking eye in bright daylight. So whatever that was in the eye, it was light sensitive, and in dim light it became more transparent, and in full sunlight it was black as onyx.
That's interesting, because I've definitely heard that quite a bit. He's saying like that, you know, the greys where they have those big black eyes, that's actually some kind of lens, like a film that actually protects their eye. And it's interesting, right? When you look at when we hear about like the Virginia case and other cases in Brazil, they all have red eyes. The Dr. Jonathan Reed alien had red eyes. You see it in the video. Maybe, but beneath that lens is red, and that's like too sensitive to sunlight or something.
Solid opaque black.
And what did he describe the eye under this shield?
He said it had an iris a little bit bigger than ours, and a bigger pupil. Is probably one reason why they had to use the shield. They had more sensitive eyes.
And the shape of the pupil and the eye?
It's round, just like ours.
And the pupil.
So they're just wearing sunnies. These greys just have like galactic sunglasses on.
As well?
Yeah. And he said that that in 1968, a progress review conference was called at Los Alamos with Edward Teller heading the table, and they took him and his...
The one who eventually hired Bob Lazar.
Yeah. And they took Bill Uhouse and his counterpart, the alien counterpart that he was working with regularly, to Los Alamos to sit around the big oval table with 18 participants to discuss the failure in making any progress in the technology assistance we were supposed to be getting.
So they're saying that like after a while they had a meeting with J-Rod and these aliens to talk about essentially the fact that we're not getting the technological breakthroughs and advancements that you promised us, which is what we hear, right? That there was a treaty signed, an exchange treaty, but we realized after a while that we got shafted and that the aliens, Phil Schneider said it, their promises are worth nothing, he essentially said. It's interesting stuff, right? Because it all kind of comparts with each other. Paris Diamonds with $5. Thank you, Paris. Your internet issue could be an overload of signal, too busy, try a different time of day. I think that definitely has a lot to do with it. It's essentially prime time, I guess, for people to be online in Australia. But also my internet could be better, so I will be looking into that tomorrow.
We haven't learned a damn thing. And they took the alien there with Bill Uhouse. They put him in a white shirt and slacks to make him look less alien, but his proportionately large head and proportionately large black eyes with no hair and everything stood out starkly in contrast to all the other participants around the table. So Bill Uhouse, most engineers are pretty good sketch artists. Bill Uhouse, while he's sitting there, as things were moving along, he's doodling on his pad and he sketched a portrait of J-Rod, is what they called him out there. And even after a while, they began calling Bill Uhouse J-Rod too, because he was spending so much time with the alien.
Wow, I didn't realize that. This Bill Uhouse guy apparently spent a lot of time with J-Rod, and I have an interview with him, which we'll look at in the next episode. But from memory, I haven't looked at it in a while, but from memory, I don't remember him talking about J-Rod. Maybe I'll do some more digging. I'll see what else I can find on him.
What did Bill talk to you about the possibility of disease, non-terrestrial diseases that might have been...
He said that we didn't understand all of the physiology of the aliens. The alien couldn't talk. But the alien was telepathic, and he tried to communicate with Bill enough so that Bill finally learned to pick some of it up. So what he couldn't pick up telepathically, the alien could make symbols and motions with his hands and sketch, like trying to, if he's thinking about making a connection from here to here for such and such reason, he could communicate the idea, but he couldn't write it down, he couldn't articulate. And Bill eventually got to where he could understand the guy pretty well, and that's why he was at the conference with the alien, is to interpret for the alien and tell him what the alien was thinking or saying.
So let's get back to that conference now then. You've got the 18 people sitting around there at the table. And what happens?
Well, I wasn't at the conference, I don't know.
What did Bill say?
He said that the conference lasted about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and the various departments made their reports on their attempts to solve some of the technological problems that were involved in understanding the spacecraft, and each department made their report on their failure to accomplish this or accomplish that, and the reasons for it, to Teller, to head the table. And when they adjourned, they agreed that they hadn't made a great deal of progress and may not make a lot of progress.
There is much more disturbing information that Uhaus offers that confirms the basic tenets in the Contra Orion case. One, that a group of multinational corporations, along with the U.S. military, are covertly hiding the existence of extraterrestrials and their secret flying disc back engineering program. And equally troubling, that two, these bases of operation within the United States are behaving as separatist nation states, headed by leaders of these multinational corporations and high-ranking military officers who don't answer to either the president or Congress. Uhaus
Yep, seems that way.
Explains what he observed from the inside for over 30 years. There are little countries within this country. You've got one not so far from here. It's part of Area 51, but a portion of that facility is a separate country. It's run by certain individuals. They've got their own rules, their own laws. I've been out there many times. I've been in some of the tunnels. But New Mexico has their own little country, and that is not the government.
Wow. So he's basically saying there are sections of the United States that are